This was not a quick speculation or rush to judgment that occurred, but rather a thorough, methodical review of significant amounts of evidence.
And the last count.
Saratoga County District Attorney Karen Hagan heard there in March of this year after an indictment was handed up for Vito Casanova. The charges, including attempted murder, now thrown out. A judge says that decision this week comes from how the prosecution, DA Hagan's office, handled the case. CBS 6's Tom Eschen speaking with key players in this case. He joins us now live in Saratoga Springs. And Tom, you've now heard Hagan's response to the latest developments. What is she now saying?
Well, Karen Hagan today wanted to make it clear while the court did dismiss this indictment, they never said that there wasn't enough evidence to support the charges made here in this case. Instead, the court asserting that there needed to be more instruction from the legal counsel regarding the justification of Vito Casanova's actions on that night. As Karen Hagan said today, one of their roles is to provide legal advice to the grand jury themselves. The court saying they needed to do more of that, did not do enough of that, and that's why some of these that's why this indictment was dismissed. Coming up later on at 5:30, of course, there's much more to this that we'll get into, including Karen Hagan's response to the court's decision yesterday. Reporting live here from Saratoga Springs, Tom Eschen, CBS 6 News.
A huge development this week. Charges dismissed for Vito Casanova. He's the Rutland County Sheriff's deputy who was charged with attempted murder in a shooting outside a Saratoga Springs bar last November. Casanova was shot multiple times by responding officers. It was the first time in 26 years that a Saratoga Springs officer discharged their weapon in the field. Now, despite a judge dismissing the charges this week, the case is far from over. CBS 6's Tom Eschen has been looking into what comes next. He's live for us tonight in Saratoga Springs. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Greg. It was right here on Broadway, this corner near Caroline Street, where a violent night erupted in Saratoga Springs. And now, 10 months later, the individuals involved have yet to be held accountable. 36 pages of a decision made by State Supreme Court Justice Jim Murphy to dismiss the indictment of Vito Casanova. In it, the court calling into question the instructions given to the grand jury by the district attorney's side, and the court saying it found a disparity between the prosecution's inquiry between Vito Casanova and one of the men from Utica involved in the incident, Alex Colon. The document finishing by saying the cumulative effect of these errors in this grand jury proceeding rendered it so flawed as to be fundamentally defective and cannot be said to be fair in any sense of the word.
Judge Murphy's decision is saying that he thought that while we did give instructions as it relates to justification, which is also known as self-defense, his decision sets forth that he thinks that there should be a more expansive and a more detailed instruction as it relates to justification and self-defense.
Saratoga County District Attorney Karen Hagan says her office will take the judge's decision into account when they present the case once again to a new grand jury.
It's a situation where we're back in the exact same position we were with the case as it relates to Mr. Casanova the very first day we started to present this case.
Due to law, Hagan could not speak to the details regarding what was presented to the grand jury. The court's dismissal states the presentation by the prosecution resulted in 2 uncharged crimes, one of which being failing to charge Alex Colon and the other individuals involved with gang assault.
In all cases presented to a grand jury, in all cases, the only thing that gets reported out is the case are those charges, if any, that a grand jury decides to indict someone on. Doesn't mean that there weren't other charges presented. It doesn't mean that there weren't other instructions given.
Now, we weren't given a firm timeline on when the next presentation to the grand jury will come. And now, don't forget, this is the first setback when it comes to this case and this situation itself. Coming up later on now at 6:30, I asked Karen Hagan more about the video that was released, that body cam video, along with a press conference that came out 10 hours after the fact. I also got Mayor Ron Kim's perspective on all of that and if he would do the same thing all over again. Make sure to tune in later for that. But for now reporting live here from Saratoga Springs, Tom Eschen, CBS 6 News.
Saratoga County District Attorney Karen Hagan heard there in March of this year after an indictment was handed up for Vito Casanova.
The charges, including attempted murder, now thrown out. A judge says that decision this week comes from how the prosecution, DA Hagan's office, handled the case.
And CBS 6's Tom Eschen has been speaking with key players in this case.
A violent night in Saratoga turned into a different scene down the street the very next day.
I've decided, in the interest of transparency, to release at this point certain information that some of the authorities would not like to see revealed.
In what they called an effort of transparency, Saratoga Springs Mayor Ron Kim and Public Safety Commissioner Jim Montanino holding a press conference, releasing body cam video of the event. Would you do that same again? Would you have the press conference and release the video and do that one more again?
Absolutely, because what we were seeing on social media were all these rumors that if, you know, the way social media works, they become truth.
Releasing the video and information went against requests by Saratoga County District Attorney Karen Hagan, spawning a gag order, which was later overturned in court.
It's the first time in my 30 years as a prosecutor I've had to deal with this kind of situation where someone has access to information because of their position, and they're choosing to disseminate that without all of the evidence.
Hagan says the release of that information 10 hours after the incident did play a factor in the dismissal of the indictment against Casanova on Wednesday.
It seems like every time there's a story about this case, a clip or two of video or a photograph is accompanying with that. So the hundreds of thousands of times that someone has taken a look at some things but not all things is a real challenge.
Well, it clearly didn't, and in fact, the judge later on, months later, in her opinion, said, "Hey, you know, you can't tell the mayor to stop talking."
While the case continues, it has spawned some change. The dismissal document states both Vito Casanova and Alex Colon had a blood alcohol level around 4 times the legal limit.
We passed an ordinance recently that said you shouldn't be drinking on Caroline Street at 3 o'clock in the morning and have a gun. And it's because it's so self-obvious that that is a danger, and these individuals put us in danger.
Wednesday's decision only pertains to the indictment against Casanova. Now, the presentation to the grand jury is made regarding the entire incident in question and now will be made once again. And just as a reminder, individual indictments or charges can come out of a grand jury presentation for that matter. I've spoken with some of the other individuals and attorneys involved in this case, and at this point they say they are deciding what exactly that means for them moving forward. Reporting here from Saratoga Springs, Tom Eschen, CBS 6 News.